What is going on, Headliner Nation? Hopefully everyone's doing well out there. Today we're talking about our quarterback and tight end rankings here for Week 7 fantasy football. Now, by now, you know we're dealing with a lot of bye weeks. 6 teams on bye this week. Plus, I think it's like 3 players shy of a crap load that are currently injured. Especially a lot of quarterbacks, right? A lot of quarterbacks banged up right now as well. So we'll do our best to try to find the best options here this week. Now, this will be our last ranking show of the week. If you're looking for more rankings like flex rankings, kicker rankings, defense rankings, we have those as well. But you need to consider becoming a channel member here by hitting that little blue join button just below the video. But you're not only just going to get the extra rankings by becoming a member, you'll get a members only live stream on Sunday, you're going to get access to Discord, you'll get some bonus content throughout the season. There's a lot that goes into becoming an official member of Headliner Nation here, so if you can, consider hitting that little blue join button like I said. But now, let's dive into the rankings. Let's kick it off at the quarterback position. Number 1 for me this week, it's going to be Jalen Hurts. And that's right, even though Jalen Hurts is coming off a game in which he threw 3 interceptions, the guy continues to go out there and put up 20 plus points a week. Now he gets a potential offensive shootout against Miami. I got him at number 1. Number 2, his opponent in that game, I'm expecting a whole lot of offense. It's really hard to run on Philadelphia, but it's not really hard to throw on Philadelphia. And we've seen Tua throwing the ball all over the field. He's at number 2. Then we go down to number 3. It's Patrick Mahomes in a great matchup going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. There's not going to be very many other matchups this season that give Patrick Mahomes the opportunity at this type of ceiling. I got him at number 3. Number 4, it's Josh Allen. How healthy is Josh Allen? He finished the game last week, but we have heard reports here throughout the week that he's dealing with some sort of minor shoulder injury. He's going to be on the road in New England. That's why he's dropped down to number 4. Number 5, it's Lamar Jackson in a matchup going up against Detroit. And it's crazy how many comments I've seen this week with people disappointed with Lamar Jackson. Why are we disappointed that much with Lamar Jackson so far this season? He's a top 7 overall quarterback. He's scored like 18 fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 ball games, and he's only like 10 points shy of Tua on the season. Don't be disappointed with Lamar Jackson. Even though the crazy ceiling that we've seen in years past isn't there, the guy is still performing. Number 6, this is where I have Justin Herbert or Justin Herbert, if you're feeling fancy. He's got a matchup going up against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, a defense that is still highly underrated. We love to see the consistency that we've seen from Justin Herbert from a fantasy perspective here to start the season. The guy's basically a lock for 19 points a game. Can we have a shootout here? Maybe a little bit more. I got him at 6. Number 7, it's Jordan Love. He's coming off his bye week, and he's going to Denver to face their defense. Now, I understand the last time we saw Jordan Love on the field, it was disgusting. But with an extra week to prep and the matchup against Denver, I got him at number 7. Number 8, it's Geno Smith. He's going against the Arizona Cardinals, who can't stop anyone in the secondary. But this is more so related to bye weeks and injuries. That's why Geno's so high. I got him at 8. Number 9, it's Matthew Stafford in a matchup going up against Pittsburgh. Now, getting Cooper Kupp back this season has really helped the floor of Matthew Stafford. What we really need is more touchdowns to see that ceiling. I got him at 9. Number 10, it's Jared Goff in a difficult matchup going up against the Baltimore Ravens. However, this offense in Detroit has been nothing but consistent for majority of the season. The running game is fairly banged up. They're going to have to throw it a little bit more. I got Jared Goff at number 10. Number 11, it's Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers in a great matchup going up against the Minnesota Vikings. We do not know at the time of this recording if we're going to have CMC or Deebo Samuel this week, and that's why he's a couple spots lower. But I cannot believe how many people hopped off the bandwagon after last week. A difficult matchup on the road in Cleveland in the rain, and people want to just bury Brock Purdy. I'm not. He's still at 11. Number 12, it's Sam Howell, the Washington Commandos, in a matchup going up against the New York Giants. Sam Howell has been playing great football for multiple weeks in a row now. And he's doing it with some of the wide receivers that we didn't expect him to use as much. We're seeing Jahan Dotson out there holding snaps for kicks. What the hell is going on with that? He's really utilizing Curtis Samuel a little bit more, but hey, from a fantasy perspective, Sam Howell still getting touchdowns. He's at number 12. 13, this is where I have Trevor Lawrence. Would love to have him a little bit higher Thursday Night Football, but he's on the road in New Orleans, not only against a good defense, but we know Trevor Lawrence isn't isn't 100% healthy and hasn't really shown us the ability to throw multiple touchdowns against any team this year except the Indianapolis Colts, so he's at number 13. 14, it's Kirk Cousins in a very difficult matchup Monday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers. Last week, Kirk Cousins didn't look like himself without Justin Jefferson on the field. They're going to have a hard time running against San Francisco this week, so I expect Kirk Cousins to still have to throw. He's at 14. 15 is Derek Carr, coming off arguably his best game of the season, where he had 50 pass attempts. That's what I'm talking about in New Orleans. Now he has a matchup going up against Jacksonville. Way easier to throw on Jacksonville than it is to run on Jacksonville. That's why I got him at 15. 16, it's Josh Dobbs of the Arizona Cardinals going to Seattle to face the Seahawks. Everybody is all up in arms and excited for the return to Kyler Murray, but that's still weeks away. We get Josh Dobbs for another couple weeks, and I don't hate this matchup. I just don't love the inconsistencies that we've seen in the play of Josh Dobbs here over the last month. Number 17, this is where I have Russell Wilson of the Denver Broncos. I had Jordan Love super high, right? It's because I expect the Packers to put up some points against this defense. That's been the silver lining all year long for Russell Wilson. Their defense is so bad, he has to throw the ball all 4 quarters. Got him at 17. 18, this is where I have Desmond Ridder. He has climbed up the rankings due to his play over the last few weeks of the season. Now, yes, he's had some good matchups along the way, and this one against Tampa Bay will not be easy. However, we're starting to see the passing game of Atlanta open up a little bit more, and that's really helping Desmond Ridder. I got him at 18. 19, his opponent in that game, it's Baker Mayfield coming off the bye week, going up against an Atlanta Falcons defense, which is still highly underrated. They have a tendency to shut down opposing teams' number 1 wide receivers, and that could really limit the ceiling of Baker Mayfield. Got him at 19. 20, it's Kenny Pickett off his bye week as well, going to LA to face the Rams. And all eyes here are on the potential return of Deontay Johnson, who could come back here this week, and Kenny Pickett desperately needs him. Now, it's not that George Pickens played bad while he was gone. He just didn't get consistent volume. They need Deontay Johnson on those shorter to underneath routes to really continue to move the chains and extend drives. I got Kenny Pickett at 20. 21, here's where I have Deshaun Watson, because we have no idea if he's going to play or not. He returned to practice today, but this has been the weirdest injury situation that I have seen since starting to make these videos. The guy has been healthy. He's been hurt. He's been medically cleared. He's been weeks away. We really have no idea what to expect, and that's why right now, until we get more information, I have him at 21. Now, if he is active and 100% good to go, the guy probably climbs into my top 12. Number 22, this is where I have Gardner Minshew of the Indianapolis Colts, a very difficult matchup for him going up against arguably the best defense in the league, the Cleveland Browns. Minshew struggled with turnovers last week. Now he gets a more difficult task. That's why I got him at 22. 23, it's Tyson Bagent of the Chicago Bears. He came out recently and says, hey, I got nothing to lose. And I kind of like that mentality. There's a lot of unknowns surrounding this kid, but in a decent matchup going up against Las Vegas, let's see what he can do. And then 24, this is where I have Tyrod Taylor of the New York Giants. We don't know if it's going to be Tyrod Taylor. We don't know if it's going to be Daniel Jones. What we do know is this is a good matchup because Washington hasn't been able to stop anyone from throwing the ball all season long. Now, on the other side of that, the Giants just can't seem to score any points. They're the lowest scoring team in the NFL, and that's why Tyrod Taylor is sitting at 24. All right, that's going to be the top 24 quarterbacks here for Week 7 fantasy football, but now it's time to transition into tight ends, the football kind, with Kyle talking about our top tight ends for Week 7.
Yo, what is going on, headliners? After massive performances from our tight ends a couple of weeks ago, we took a huge step back in Week 6 and saw a bunch of those tight ends become fantasy irrelevant once again. So what is Week 7 going to bring us? It's really hard to predict. The tight end landscape is absolutely brutal right now, but we're going to try our best with my top 18 tight ends and a few guys on the outside looking in. And of course, we're going to kick it off with number 1 overall. You know it, Travis Kelce. Do I care that the LA Chargers allowed the 9th fewest fantasy points to the tight end position? Absolutely not, because they're also ranked 25th against the pass right now, and we know that in a matchup like this, not only is Travis Kelce going to see a ton of targets, but if it's back and forth, we could definitely see a score from him and a whole lot of yards. Mark Andrews going up against the Detroit Lions that allow the 5th most fantasy points to the tight end position. Andrews averaging almost 60 receiving yards per game and almost 12 fantasy points per game, and has only been outside the top 12 tight ends one time this season, absolutely thriving in this new Baltimore offense and will continue to do so this week. At number 3 and number 4, Dallas Goedert and George Kittle. Right now, these guys are just as risky as any other tight end that you would want to try and start. But this week, they have more upside than anyone not named Kelsey or Andrews. Dallas Goedert has a great matchup going up against the Miami Dolphins. They're all right against tight ends, really kind of middle of the pack, but I don't expect Philadelphia to play in much of a positive game script in this matchup. And because of that, Dallas Goedert should still see a ton of targets and have some scoring potential as well. And George Kittle has a great opportunity going up against Minnesota. The possibility of either having no Christian McCaffrey and or no Deebo Samuel, or at least limited versions of both of those guys, present a great target opportunity for George Kittle to potentially find the end zone this week. TJ Hockenson has an awful matchup going up against the San Francisco 49ers, allowing the 6th fewest fantasy points to the tight end position. But with no Justin Jefferson, the opportunity for targets will be there. Unfortunately, over the last 3 weeks, TJ Hockenson has not made it in as a top 12 tight end. But as of right now, if you take a look at the landscape, he is one guy that you could look at that say, yeah, maybe his floor hasn't been that great these past few weeks, but he still has a decent opportunity share more than a lot of other guys. The Baltimore Ravens allow the fewest fantasy points per game to the tight end position right now, and Sam Laporta probably still dealing with a little bit of a calf issue that we saw last week. Now, a down performance for him, but he did drop 3 passes as well, that if he would have caught those, it probably would have put him definitely within the tight end 1 range that we've seen so far this season. Expect a really low floor for him this week and a really low ceiling, but he still has an opportunity to finish inside the top 6 given potential game script. Evan Ingram at number 7 doesn't have a whole lot of ceiling. He's not going to score you a whole lot of touchdowns, and he's not going to finish as a top 5 tight end a majority of weeks. But so far, based on his production this season, he's definitely one of the safer tight ends, averaging 6 receptions per game. Now, this is a tough matchup going up against New Orleans, but based on how good Trevor Lawrence looks, if he's limited in any fashion, he could be looking to Evan Ingram more often than not. Luke Musgrave has been out of sight, out of mind for a couple of weeks, but now in this matchup going up against Denver, who allow the most fantasy points to the tight end position, I'm going to go ahead and bet on Luke Musgrave having pretty decent upside this week, and that's why I've got him all the way up at number 8. Now, with the majority of the Green Bay Packers finally healthy, he definitely has a lower floor, but given the matchup and potential target share, averaging 3 receptions and 31 yards a game, if we can bump those 2 things up and find him his first career touchdown, he's definitely finishing in this area. Pat Freiermuth, a great week for him to return from injury because he's getting the Los Angeles Rams that allow the 4th most fantasy points to the tight end position. Pat Freiermuth was not a value monster by any means at the beginning of the season, but he was one of the better bets to find red zone targets, and that's what I'll go for this week against LA. I would love to go Darren Waller higher, but it doesn't feel like Darren Waller gets any receptions until the final 5 minutes of the football game when the New York Giants are scrambling to try and score a last-minute touchdown that inevitably doesn't matter anyway. Darren Waller, for me, he might see volume due to negative game script, but when does that volume come, and is it worth trying to start him over some of these other guys with more upside? Kyle Pitts at number 11 and Jonnu Smith at number 12. Both of these guys kind of seeing similar numbers right now, and I don't hate trying to start either of them. Now, Kyle Pitts, we're banking on him keeping up the production we've seen the last couple of weeks, going up against a Tampa Bay defense that is pretty decent at limiting tight ends. Now, they're not giving up great numbers, and they're not completely shutting them down, but they have very athletic linebackers that can stay with the tight ends more times than not. Kyle Pitts, to me, might see a few more targets than Jonnu Smith, but Jonnu Smith is a guy that has been a little bit more reliant in terms of the receptions and the receiving yards as of lately. Both of them scored touchdowns last week. Right now, Smith averaging 7.4 fantasy points to Kyle Pitts' 6.9 fantasy points. It's going to be interesting to see which one of these guys has the better day. It could end up being a little bit of a tougher matchup, but both of them still have the opportunity, especially if it's a neutral game script, to finish inside the top 12. Gerald Everett is going to come in at number 13 for me, given a really good potential matchup and a neutral game script shootout against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, when you take a look at the team around him, obviously Mike Williams is done. Keenan Allen is the number one. But after that, it's kind of a mix-up. Quentin Johnson really hasn't had any type of a breakout as of yet. Josh Palmer, he's still a little bit banged up right now. Austin Eckler, this matchup against Kansas City does a really good job of limiting receptions and receiving yards to opposing running backs. So if there were an opportunity for Gerald Everett to see some increased volume, right now would be that time. Now, Tyler Higbee at number 14 gets a little bit of an update for me because in his start and sit video, I had him listed as a high risk, but I'm going to move him to more of a medium risk this week and have him all the way up at number tight end 14. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I do believe that they're going to try to use some short targets with Tyler Higbee to offset their issues at the running back position right now. You have injuries to Kyren Williams and Ronnie Rivers. Zach Evans, he hasn't really done anything to step up as of yet. Darrell Henderson was signed. He does have some familiarity with this offensive scheme. And of course, they also added Royce Freeman this week. But with all those things said at the running back position, maybe we try to use some like targets of 5, 6, 7 yards with Tyler Higbee to try and pick up some of those short yarded situations they would normally end up running the football instead. At number 15 and 16, Cole Kmet and Logan Thomas. Now, both of these guys are kind of in similar situations and similar outcome range for me this week. Cole Kmet is going to have a new quarterback under center, Tyson Bagent. Is he going to be the guy? Is he still going to look to Cole Kmet the way Justin Fields has looked to Cole Kmet? It definitely is possible, especially if they're trying to get the ball out quick, but I really feel like Chicago is going to try and run the football as much as possible. And I don't know if I trust Las Vegas's offense to put Chicago in such a negative game script that they're going to have to throw the ball a ton. Logan Thomas against the Giants, kind of the same situation. I really feel like Washington's going to try and control the game on the ground, and by doing so, they're probably not going to throw the ball as much as we would like. Logan Thomas definitely has a floor of maybe 4 targets, 3 receptions for 35 receiving yards. He's got a little bit higher of a ceiling as well, but I don't anticipate the New York Giants putting Washington in such a negative game script where they're going to be forced to throw the ball enough to put Logan Thomas higher than this. Michael Mayer at number 17. I would love to go higher this week with Michael Mayer, and if Jimmy Garoppolo was playing, I actually probably would do that, but the majority of his production last week came with Jimmy G under center. It's going to be interesting to see if he's still going to be looked at as much, but going up against Chicago, I expect to see a whole lot of Josh Jacobs, and after Devontae Adams made some comments about needing more targets, wouldn't be surprised to see him get involved a little bit more as well. David Njoku at number 18 has a really good matchup going up against the Indianapolis Colts, but the guy is averaging 4 receptions a game and only 32 yards per game. He hasn't been a top 12 tight end as of yet, and he's not even averaging 5 fantasy points per game. I just don't know how I can trust him. He's lucky to be even inside my top 18, and he is based on the matchup alone. All right, real quick, I've got a few guys on the outside looking in. Taysom Hill, I'm not going to rank him this week. If you feel like you have to start him, feel more than welcome to. He's coming off a career week in terms of actual receiving work, which is something he hasn't really had this season, and he played in the slot quite a bit. But does that continue? Does Jamal Williams being back affect it at all? What happens going up against a Jacksonville team that is really, really good against the run and can get beat against the pass sometimes? I don't know. Taysom Hill for me is just way too risky to try and run out there again. But if you're in a situation where you don't have any other opportunity to toss in there, then maybe you have to go with Taysom Hill. Hunter Henry at number 20, he's questionable right now going up against Buffalo. And since I don't even know what quarterback is going to be playing, I have no confidence in Hunter Henry this week. He was Mac Jones's guy, but Mac Jones couldn't even find him when he was wide open last week, and who knows what's going to happen with the new quarterback. Zach Ertz and Trey McBride together. Now, Zach Ertz at one point this season had like 29 targets over the course of 3 games, was getting looked at consistently, and that has died down over the last couple of weeks And Trey McBride had 5 targets, the same as Zach Ertz last week, but had much more production. Seattle is not a great opportunity for either of these guys, but I'm going to put them right here because I think it's interesting to watch these guys moving forward and see what happens. Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, also teammates I'm going to put together. Not a great matchup opportunity going up against New England. New England right now allowing the 11th fewest fantasy points to the tight end position. But Dalton Kincaid, if he gets back to being healthy, it looks like he's still in the concussion protocol, but he is practicing. If he gets cleared in time, might see a few more targets, but Dawson Knox is so banged up right now with his wrist bothering him, I don't think that I could trust him this week. Yo, Headliner Nation, I know trying to figure out the right tight end right now can be really problematic, and hopefully my rankings are helping take away some of the issues that you have trying to find the correct guy. But do me a favor, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel with notifications on if you are new here, and leave us some comments down below and let us know a couple of players at the quarterback and tight end position that you feel like could finish inside the top 12 this week and maybe surprise some people with a big performance. And no, you're not allowed to pick Taysom Hill for that. Headliner Nation, I'm going to get out of here though. Peace out, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.